The sky above Velaru 7 turned black with ships. They came without warning. They came without mercy. Elder Soren stood at the window of his council chamber and watched his world begin to die. The Hollow had arrived. Their ships were not like normal vessels. They looked like living things made of metal and flesh. They moved like insects, swarming across the sky in numbers too great to count. The Valorans were a peaceful species. They had soft blue skin and large eyes that could see in the dark. They had 4 arms and stood tall and thin. For thousands of years they lived by farming and trading. They had no great weapons. They had no warships. They had never needed them. Now they needed them more than anything. Elder, the outer cities are gone, said Rin, the military commander. His voice was hollow. The Hollow are eating everything. Buildings, machines, people. They take it all. Soren closed his eyes. He had lived for 200 years. He had seen droughts and storms and sickness, but he had never seen anything like this. The Hollow did not invade to conquer. They did not want land or resources. They simply consumed. They ate entire worlds and moved on to the next. How long do we have? Soren asked. Maybe 4. Then there will be nothing left. In the communications room below, a young Valoran named Kella worked at her station. Her hands shook as she typed. She was only 20 years old. She had trained to send trade messages and coordinate shipping routes. She never thought she would send a message like this. The distress signal went out in all directions. It traveled at the speed of light, bouncing off relay stations and spreading across the galaxy. It was a simple message. It said that Valora 7 was under attack. It said they had no weapons. It said they would all die without help. Kala sent the message to every species in the galactic database. There were hundreds of them. Surely someone would come. Surely someone would help. The first responses came within hours. The Thalaxians expressed sympathy, but said their fleet was busy elsewhere. The Morvani sent prayers and good wishes. The Kelef Dominion explained that Velara 7 was too far from their borders to matter. The Galactic Council sent a formal message. They promised to review the situation at their next meeting. Their next meeting was in 2 months. Kella read each response with growing horror. No one was coming. The galaxy had heard them screaming. The galaxy had turned away. She put her head down on her console and cried. Rin found her there an hour later. The old soldier had fought border skirmishes in his youth. He knew how to die with dignity. But watching a young person lose hope was harder than any battle. Come, child, he said. There is nothing more you can do. I sent it to everyone, Keela whispered. Everyone? They all said no. The galaxy is full of cowards, Rin said. We will face the end alone. At least we will face it with honor. He turned to leave. Then Kella's console beeped. She looked at the screen. A new message had arrived. It came from a system called Sol. She had never heard of it. The database said it was home to a young species called humans. They had only been traveling the stars for a few hundred years. They were considered primitive by galactic standards. The message was short. It said, "This is United Earth Command. We received your signal. Hold your position. We are coming." That was all. No sympathy. No apologies. No promises they could not keep. Just 3 words that mattered. We are coming. Kella showed the message to Rin. The old soldier read it twice. Humans, he said slowly. I have heard of them. They are violent creatures. They fight wars among themselves constantly. But they said they are coming. One small species from a distant system. They probably have a few ships. Maybe a dozen. The Hollow have thousands. Rin shook his head. It will not matter. But it is kind of them to try. Kella printed the message and took it to Elder Soren. The old leader read it with tired eyes. Humans, Soren said. I remember reading about them. They nearly destroyed their own planet before they learned to travel to the stars. They are a species born in fire. Will they help us? They say they will come. But what can one young species do against the Hollow? Soren handed the message back to Kella. Still, it is good to know that someone in this galaxy cares enough to answer. When we are gone, perhaps they will remember us. Outside the window, hollow ships descended on another city. Millions of creatures poured out, eating everything in their path. The screams of the dying carried on the wind. Kella returned to her console. She sent a reply to Earth. She told them about the hollow. She told them how many ships there were. She told them that her people had no weapons and no hope. The response came quickly. Message received. Fleet is already moving. Estimated arrival, 3 days. Advise all civilians to move to underground shelters. Stay away from windows. This is going to be loud. Kayla did not understand the last part. What did loud mean? But she forwarded the message to Elder Soren anyway. 3 days. In 3 days, her people would be dead or saved. And their fate rested in the hands of a species they had never met. From a planet they had never seen, Kella looked up at the burning sky and whispered a prayer to gods she was not sure existed. Please let them be enough. 8. Somewhere in the darkness of space, a fleet of 10,000 ships turned toward Velarus 7 and on the bridge of the flagship Horizon. Admiral Park Jun-ho looked at the tactical display and spoke 2 words. Full speed. 3 days felt like 3 years. Kella had not slept since sending the distress signal. She stayed at her console, watching the hollow consume her world piece by piece. The swarm had taken the eastern continent. Then the southern islands? Now they moved toward the capital city where the last survivors had gathered. Underground shelters held millions of Valorans. They huddled in darkness, listening to the sounds of destruction above. Children cried. Parents tried to comfort them with lies about rescue ships coming. No one really believed help would arrive. Elder Soren stood in the command center, watching the tactical display. Red dots covered the map. Each dot was a hollow ship. There were so many that the map looked like it was bleeding. They will reach the capital by nightfall, Rin said. His voice was calm. He had accepted death. We should prepare the people. Prepare them for what? Soren asked. To die with dignity. Kella looked at her screen. The human fleet had sent updates every few hours. They said they were coming at maximum speed. They said to hold on. But the 3 days were almost over, and the sky showed nothing but enemies. Maybe they lied, someone said. Maybe they never meant to come. Maybe they are too small to matter, said another. Kella said nothing. She just watched her screen and waited. The sun began to set over Valora 7. Orange light spread across the sky, mixing with the smoke from burning cities. The hollow ships gathered above the capital like vultures waiting for a meal. Their numbers blocked out the stars. In the shelters, Valorans held each other and prayed. Some sang old songs about peace and harvest and better days. Some sat in silence, too afraid to speak. Some screamed at walls that could not hear them. Rin gave orders to his remaining soldiers. They had simple weapons, energy rifles that could kill small creatures. They would do nothing against the hollow. But the soldiers stood ready anyway. If they were going to die, they would die fighting. Contact, Kella said suddenly. Her voice cracked. I have contact. Something is coming. More hollow ships. Rin asked. No, the signature's different. It is coming from deep space. It is. She stopped. Her eyes went wide. Elder, you need to see this. Soren walked to her station. He looked at the screen. He did not understand what he was seeing. It cannot be right, he said. Check your equipment. I checked it 3 times. The readings are accurate. Rin pushed forward to look. His face went pale. The sensors showed a massive energy signature approaching the system. It was not 1 ship. It was not 10 ships. It was not 100 ships. The signature was so large that the computer could not count them all. It simply displayed 1 word. Thousands. Then the sky ripped open. Hyperspace was supposed to be invisible. Ships entered and exited through small, quiet portals that barely disturbed the space around them. That was normal. That was how every species traveled. The humans did not do it the normal way. A tear appeared in the sky above Velaruseven. It was massive. It stretched from horizon to horizon, burning with white and blue fire. The fabric of space itself seemed to scream as it was forced apart, and from that wound in reality, ships began to pour through. They were enormous. The first ones through were dreadnoughts, each one larger than a Valoran city. Their hulls were covered in weapons, cannons and missile tubes and devices that Kella could not even identify. They moved with terrible purpose, spreading out in perfect formation. Behind the dreadnoughts came carriers. Each carrier launched hundreds of smaller ships. Fighters and bombers swarmed into space like angry insects. They moved faster than anything Kella had ever seen. Then came the destroyers, then the cruisers, then the support ships. They kept coming. They kept coming, and there was no end to them. Kella counted. She stopped at 10,000 because her console ran out of space to display the numbers. The hollow ships had frozen in place. For the first time since arriving, they had stopped moving. They had consumed 17 civilizations. They had never seen anything like this. A voice came over every communication channel on the planet. It was calm and clear and spoke in perfect Valoran language. "This is Admiral Park Junho of the United Earth Fleet. We have arrived. All Valoran civilians are ordered to remain in shelters. All Valoran military forces are ordered to stand down and let us work." There was a pause. Then the Admiral spoke again. To the hollow swarm. "You have exactly 0 seconds to surrender." Kella heard weapons powering up. Across 10,000 ships, targeting systems locked onto hollow vessels. The sound was like thunder rolling across the sky. "Surrender time has expired," Admiral Junho said. "All ships, weapons free. Show no mercy." The human fleet opened fire. Captain Kong Minji sat in the cockpit of her fighter craft. She led a squadron of 200 pilots. They called themselves the Iron Wings. They had trained for years for moments like this. "Iron Wings," she said over the radio. "Target the swarm clusters. Keep them away from the planet. Kill everything that moves." Her ship shot forward. Behind her, 200 engines roared to life. The hollow tried to fight back. They launched their own swarms, billions of tiny creatures that could eat through metal and flesh. But the human ships were ready. Point defense systems activated, filling the space with walls of bullets and energy beams. The swarms died by the millions before they could reach their targets. On the surface of Velara 7, Velarans came out of their shelters. They looked up at the sky. They saw light. They saw fire. They saw the hollow dying. Rin stood among them, his mouth hanging open. "What are they?" someone asked. The old soldier watched a human dreadnought split a hollow mothership in half with a single shot. He watched fighters dance through enemy formations, leaving trails of destruction behind them. "I do not know," Rin said quietly, "but I am glad they are on our side." Elder Soren fell to his knees. Tears ran down his blue face. "They came," he whispered. "They actually came." In her console room, Kella watched the battle unfold. The humans moved like they had been fighting wars forever. Every ship knew exactly where to be. Every weapon fired at exactly the right moment. It was beautiful and terrible, and she could not look away. A new message appeared on her screen. It was from the human flagship. "Velara 7 Command, this is Horizon. Please advise your people to stay calm. We have this under control. Estimated time to complete victory, 6 hours. 6 hours. The Hollow had conquered 17 civilizations, and the humans planned to destroy them in 6 hours. Kella typed a response with shaking hands. "Thank you," she wrote. "Thank you for coming." The reply came instantly. "You called for help?" We answered. "That is what we do." The Hollow had never known fear. They were a swarm. They were endless. They consumed worlds and grew stronger. No species had ever stopped them. No species had ever even slowed them down until now, Admiral. Park Junho stood on the bridge of the horizon and watched his fleet work. The tactical display showed thousands of blue dots surrounding thousands of red dots. The red dots were disappearing fast. "Carrier Group 7, move to Sector 9, he ordered. "The swarm is trying to escape toward the asteroid belt." "Cut them off." "Yes, Admiral," came the response. Lieutenant Yoon Taeon worked at the tactical station. He was young, only 25 years old, but he had trained at Earth's best military academy. His mind could process hundreds of data streams at once. "Admiral, the hollow mothership is trying to retreat," Taeyan reported. "It is heading for the edge of the system. Track it. Nothing leaves this system alive." The battle raged across the void. Human weapons were not elegant or beautiful. They were designed for one purpose: destruction. Kinetic rounds, the size of cars, flew through space at impossible speeds. They hit hollow ships and tore them apart like paper. Nuclear missiles streaked through the darkness. Each explosion was a small sun, vaporizing everything nearby. The hollow tried to scatter, but the human fleet was everywhere. There was no escape. Captain Kong Minji led her fighters through the heart of the swarm. Enemy ships surrounded her on all sides. She smiled. "Iron wings? Diamond formation?" she ordered. "Guns hot. Let us dance." Her squadron moved as one. 200 fighters wove through enemy fire, spinning and diving and climbing. They never stopped shooting. Every burst of weapons fire found a target. Hollow ships exploded around them like fireworks. "Enemy fighter on your 6, Captain," one of her pilots warned. Minji pulled her ship into a sharp turn. The hollow fighter followed. She cut her engines, let it pass overhead, then fired 3 shots into its back. It exploded. "Nice try," she said. Next, on the ground below, Commander Shin Woo-jin led his soldiers through the ruins of a Valoran city. The hollow had landed ground forces before the fleet arrived. Millions of creatures crawled through the streets, eating everything they found. Woo-jin was 50 years old. He had fought in Earth's last great war, the one that finally united all of humanity. He had seen terrible things. He had done terrible things. Now he used those skills to protect instead of destroy. "Squad 2, cover the left flank," he ordered. "Squad 3, get those civilians to the evacuation point. Move." His soldiers moved with speed and purpose. They wore heavy armor that could stop most weapons. They carried rifles that fired superheated plasma. The hollow creatures were fast and deadly, but they were not ready for human soldiers. A swarm of hollow creatures charged toward a group of Valoran civilians. The aliens screamed and ran. They had nowhere to go. Woo-jin stepped in front of them. "Get behind me," he said. The hollow came at him in a wave. Woo-jin raised his rifle and fired. The first line of creatures fell. He kept firing. More fell. His soldiers joined him, creating a wall of plasma fire that nothing could pass. When the swarm finally broke, hundreds of hollow bodies covered the ground. Woo-jin turned to the civilians. "Are you hurt?" he asked. A young Valoran child looked up at him with wide eyes. "You saved us. That is my job. Now go." The evacuation ships are waiting. In orbit, the battle entered its final phase. The hollow mothership made a desperate run for freedom. It was massive, larger than any other ship in their fleet. It was also their command center. If it escaped, the hollow would return someday. Admiral Junho would not allow that. "All ships, focus fire on the mothership," he ordered. "Do not let it reach hyperspace." 100 human ships turned their weapons on the fleeing vessel. Missiles and energy beams and kinetic rounds flew through space. The mothership's shields flickered. Then they failed. Admiral Taeyun said, "The mothership is charging its hyperspace drive. It will jump in 30 seconds. Ready the main cannon?" The Horizon was the flagship of the United Earth Fleet. It was not just a command vessel. It was a weapon. Built into its center was a cannon so powerful that it could crack a small moon. "Main cannon charged and ready," an officer reported. "Fire." A beam of pure energy shot from the Horizon. It crossed the distance to the mothership in less than a second. The beam hit the enemy vessel and kept going. It passed through the ship like it was not there. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mothership split in half. Then each half split again. Then the entire thing exploded in a ball of fire so bright that it lit up the entire system. Across the fleet, human soldiers cheered. On the ground, Valoran civilians stared at the sky in disbelief. The greatest threat their world had ever known was gone. Admiral Junho allowed himself a small smile. Then his face became serious again. "Status report," he ordered. All hollow ships destroyed, Taeon reported. Ground forces are clearing the remaining creatures. Estimated time to full victory? 2 hours? Casualties? 317 human soldiers killed. 42 ships damaged. 8 ships destroyed. Junho closed his eyes. 317 families would receive bad news. 317 heroes would not go home. He would remember every name. And the Valorans. He asked, "Civilian casualties are in the millions, but the remaining population is secure. We saved approximately 80% of them." 80%. It was not enough. It was never enough. But it was better than nothing. "Tell Commander Woojin to begin humanitarian operations," Junho ordered. "I want medical teams on the ground within the hour. Food and water distribution starts immediately. We came here to save these people. Let us save them properly." Kella watched the last hollow ship die on her screen. The battle was over. Her people had been rescued. She tried to speak. No words came out. She tried to stand. Her legs would not work. 3 days of terror and exhaustion crashed down on her all at once. Rin caught her before she fell. "Easy, child," the old soldier said. "It is over." "We are safe." "They won," Kella whispered. "They actually won." Rin looked at the sky. Human ships filled the void, still hunting for any last enemies. Their weapons still glowed with heat from the battle, as he said quietly, "They won. And now I understand why the galaxy fears them. Look at what they did, child. They came to a world they had never seen. They fought an enemy they had never faced. And they destroyed that enemy completely, without hesitation, without mercy." Rin shook his head slowly. Imagine what they could do to a species that made them angry. Imagine what they could do if they decided to conquer instead of protect. Kella thought about that. Then she thought about the message they had sent. "We are coming." 3 simple words. 3 words that meant salvation for her people. But for the Hollow, those same words had meant something very different. They had meant death. The fires stopped burning 3 days after the battle. The smoke cleared slowly, revealing the true damage to Velaru 7. Half the planet was destroyed. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were now piles of rubble. Forests that had grown for centuries were now ash. But the people survived. Most of them, anyway. The Valorans expected the human fleet to leave. They had come to fight. The fight was over. Why would they stay? But the humans did not leave. Dr. Buchanan led the first medical team to the surface. She was 40 years old, with gray in her hair and kindness in her eyes. She had been a doctor for 20 years. She had treated wounds from wars and accidents and diseases. She had never seen suffering on this scale. The refugee camp held 300,000 Valorans. They sat in the dirt, hungry and tired and broken. Many were injured. Some were dying. All of them had lost someone. "Set up the medical tents here," Hannah ordered her team. "Priority goes to critical cases. Children and elderly first." Her team moved fast. Within an hour, they had created a working hospital in the middle of the ruins. Human doctors and nurses treated Valoran patients with technology that seemed like magic. A young Valoran boy had lost his arm in the attack. Hollow creatures had bitten it off. He sat in silence, staring at nothing, while his mother cried beside him. Hannah knelt in front of him. "What is your name?" she asked softly. The boy did not answer. His mother spoke for him. "His name is Talo. He has not spoken since the attack." Hannah nodded. She reached into her medical bag and pulled out a small device. It looked like a metal sleeve. "Talo, I am going to give you something," she said. "It will not hurt. I promise." She attached the device to the stump of his arm. The device hummed. Then it began to grow. Metal and synthetic flesh expanded outward, forming fingers, then a palm, then a whole hand. Talo watched with wide eyes. His mother gasped. "It is called a prosthetic," Hannah explained. "It will work just like your real arm, maybe even better." Talo moved his new fingers. They responded perfectly. He looked at Hannah, and for the first time since the attack, he smiled. "Thank you," he whispered. Hannah smiled back. "You are welcome." Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human engineers helped rebuild shelters. Human soldiers distributed food and water. Human pilots flew supply runs from orbit to surface, bringing medicine and blankets and hope. The Valorans did not understand. This was not how rescue worked. You saved people, and then you left. You did not stay to clean up the mess. You did not treat the wounded and feed the hungry. That was not the job of warriors, but the humans stayed. Elder Soren requested a meeting with Admiral Junho. The human agreed immediately. A shuttle brought the Valoran leader to the flagship Horizon. Soren had never been on a warship before. The Horizon was enormous. Its halls were wide and clean. Soldiers walked past, nodding respectfully to the Valoran elder. They did not look like monsters. They looked like ordinary people doing a job. Admiral Junho waited in his office. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He stood when Soren entered and offered a human greeting, a bow of the head. "Elder Soren, please sit." Soren sat. For a long moment, he did not know what to say. Finally, he asked the question that had been burning inside him. Why? Junho tilted his head. Why what? Why all of this? You came to fight the Hollow. You did that. You won. But you stayed. Your people are healing our wounded. They are feeding our children. They are rebuilding our homes. Soren spread his hands in confusion. We have nothing to offer you. We cannot pay you. We cannot help you in any way, so why? Junho was quiet for a long time. He looked out the window at the stars. Let me tell you about Earth, he said finally. About humanity. He activated a display screen. Images appeared. Old images. Images of war and death and destruction. We nearly destroyed ourselves, Junho said. Many times. We fought wars over land, over religion, over ideas, over nothing at all. We built weapons that could kill millions in seconds. We polluted our own planet until it almost killed us back. More images, fire, bombs, Bodhis. For most of our history, we were alone. When we suffered, no one helped us. When we called for rescue, no one answered. We had to save ourselves or die. Junho turned to face Soren. And we learned something from that. What did you learn? We learned what it feels like to be abandoned. We learned the pain of crying for help and hearing nothing but silence. Junho's voice grew soft, and we decided that we would never let anyone else feel that way. Soren stared at the human. He had expected many things. He had not expected this. Built this fleet, Soren said slowly, not to conquer. No, not to gain power. No, then why? Junho smiled. It was a sad smile, full of old pain and hard lessons. Because mercy without strength is meaningless, he said. Anyone can feel sorry for the suffering. It takes power to actually stop it. We built this fleet to be strong enough to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We came to your world because you called for help. And we stayed because saving lives is only the beginning. Healing them is what matters. Soren felt tears running down his face. He did not wipe them away. I was told humans were violent, he said. I was told you were dangerous, Junho admitted. We are the most violent species in the galaxy. But violence is just a tool. It can destroy or protect. We choose to protect. On the surface below, Kella helped distribute food to refugees. A human soldier worked beside her. His name was Wujin. He was big and scarred and looked like he had seen 100 battles. But he handed food to children with gentle hands and smiled at frightened mothers. Why are you doing this? Kella asked him. You are a warrior. This is not warrior work, Wujin laughed. All work is warrior work. Fighting, healing, building, feeding. It is all the same battle. What battle? The battle against suffering. Wujin looked at the refugees around them. The guns stop the enemy. But kindness stops the pain. Both are needed. Both are important. Kella thought about that. She thought about the human fleet in orbit. She thought about the doctors and soldiers and engineers who had stayed to help. "Your species is strange," she said. "Yes," Woojin agreed. "We are. But strange is not always bad." He handed her another box of supplies and smiled. "Now come. There is much work to do." The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Velary 7 had been attacked by the Hollow. The Hollow had been destroyed. Not defeated. Not driven back. Destroyed completely in 6 hours by a species called humans from a planet called Earth. The Galactic Council demanded an explanation. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They made laws. They settled disputes. They decided who was important and who was not. Humanity had always been at the bottom of their list. A young species. Violent. Primitive. Not worth attention. Now they wanted attention. The council chambers were enormous. Hundreds of representatives from hundreds of species sat in a great circle. In the center stood a small platform. This was where the accused stood. This was where humanity would answer for its crimes. Ambassador No Yunji walked to the platform alone. She was small compared to the alien giants around her. She was young, only 35 years old, but she walked with her back straight and her head high. The head of the council was a massive creature called a Vexen. It had 6 arms and skin like stone. It looked down at the human with obvious disgust. "You are the representative of Earth?" it asked. "I am." "You will explain your actions at Velary 7? Yunji smiled politely. "What actions would you like me to explain? The destruction of the Hollow fleet, the deployment of illegal weapons, the disruption of galactic peace. The Hollow were eating the Valorans alive. We stopped them. How is that a disruption of peace?" Murmurs ran through the chamber. The Vexen raised a hand for silence. The Hollow were a recognized galactic species. They had rights. You destroyed them without warning. Without negotiation? Without permission from this council. Yunji laughed. It was a quiet laugh, but it echoed through the silent chamber. "Permission?" she said. "The Hollow consumed 17 civilizations. They ate billions of sentient beings. And you are angry because we did not ask your permission to stop them. There are rules," another representative said. A tall, thin creature with silver skin. "Procedures. You cannot simply attack another species because you disagree with their behavior. Their behavior was genocide. Their behavior was consuming children and elderly and innocent people who had done nothing wrong." Yunji's voice grew cold. "And your behavior was sending formal apologies while those people died." Silence fell over the chamber. Yunji reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. She placed it on the platform in front of her. "This chip contains a full record of the Valoran distress signal," she said. "It also contains every response that signal received. Every species who heard it. Every message they sent back." She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces. Sympathy. Prayers. Promises to review the situation. "That is what you offered. That is what you always offer." She pointed at the chip. "This record is being broadcast across the galaxy as we speak. Every species will see it. Every species will know what you did. What you did not do." The Vexen leaned forward. "Are you threatening us?" "No, I am informing you." And G stepped closer to the council. "Earth does not need your approval. Earth does not want your approval. We came to Velary 7 because someone called for help. That is what we do. That is what we will always do. Cannot simply ignore galactic law," a representative protested. "Your laws allowed 17 civilizations to die. Your laws did nothing while the Hollow grew stronger and hungrier. Your laws are worthless." Yunji shook her head. "Earth has its own law now. One law, one rule. Anyone who calls for help will be answered. Anyone who threatens the innocent will be stopped. By force, if necessary." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted at each other and at the human ambassador. The Vexen demanded order. When quiet finally returned, a small representative stood. It was a Valoran, Elder Soren. He had traveled to the council to speak on behalf of his people. May the first address the chamber, he asked. The Vexen nodded reluctantly. Soren walked to the center platform and stood beside Yunji. He looked old and tired, but his voice was strong. My people sent a call for help, he said. We sent it to everyone. This council, every species in the database. We begged for someone to save us. He looked around the chamber. He sent sympathy. The humans sent warships. You sent prayers? The humans sent soldiers who died protecting our children. You promised to review our situation. The humans stayed for weeks to heal our wounded and rebuild our homes. Soren's voice cracked with emotion. Do not lecture them about laws and rules. Do not tell them they were wrong to save us. They did what you refused to do. They answered when no one else would. Turned to face the Vexen directly. If caring about innocent lives is a crime, then the humans are guilty. But if abandoning innocent lives is acceptable, then this council has no right to judge anyone. Soren stepped back. The chamber was silent. Youngji nodded to the old Valoran. Then she turned back to the council. Earth is not asking for your friendship, she said. We are not asking for your respect. We are simply telling you how things will be from now on. She began to walk away. Then she stopped and looked over her shoulder. One more thing. You called us primitive once. You called us violent. You were right about the violence. But primitive? She smiled. We just destroyed an enemy that scared you for centuries. We did it in 6 hours? Imagine what we could do if you gave us a reason. She left the chamber without looking back. 1 month later, Kella stood on a hill overlooking her rebuilt city. Human engineers had worked with Valoran builders to create something beautiful. New homes stood where ruins had been. New gardens grew where ash had fallen. Rin stood beside her. The old soldier had changed since the battle. He smiled more now. He spoke more softly. The human fleet leaves today, Kella said. I know. I will miss them. Rin nodded. So will I strange, is it not? We were told to fear humans. Now I am sad to see them go. They watched as shuttles lifted off from the surface. The last of the human soldiers were returning to their ships. Their work was done. Velora 7 was safe. It was time to go home. A shuttle passed overhead. Kella thought she saw someone waving from a window. She waved back. Do you think they will return? She asked. If we call them, yes. Of that I am certain. Kella watched the shuttle disappear into the sky. Somewhere up there, Admiral Junho was giving orders. Captain Minji was checking her fighter. Commander Wu Jin was preparing for the next mission. Dr. Hannah was reviewing medical supplies. They were not heroes in their own eyes. They were just people doing a job. But to the Valorans, they were something more. They were proof that kindness and strength could exist together. They were proof that someone in the galaxy would answer when others called for help. They are terrifying, Rin said quietly. Kella smiled. Yes, and thank the stars they are on our side. The last human ship entered hyperspace. The sky returned to normal. But nothing else would ever be normal again. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. A lesson about a small blue planet called Earth. A lesson about a violent, primitive species called humans. When you call them for rescue, they answer, and when they arrive, they bring everything, including devastation.